thoughts. Really appreciated. There's some breaking news coming through on Zee Entertainment, and it's a big relief for the Zee-Sony merger. And that's why you're seeing the stock as well react a tad bit to that. The NCLAT has set aside the NCLT order directing NSE and BSE to review the grant for the NOC. And this is very important for Zee. It's a big relief coming through, and you can see it, on the stock. Stock is up about 3% odd. The NCLT order said that the NCLT should set aside for the violation of principles of natural justice. The NCLT will decide the issue after hearing both sides. So it looks like this is a relief as far as the, Zee-Sony merger is concerned. In all probability, the Zee-Sony merger can now perhaps go through. That's what the initial reading is of this entire situation, and hence the stock is up almost about 3% odd. Remember, the NCLT had directed NSE and BSE to review the approval in light of the non-compete clause of the Zee-Sony merger. The NCLT had directed NSE-BSE to also review if the payment of 1,100 crores in the non-compete fees by Sony to the SL Group promoters is as per SEBI regulations. But as of now, there is a relief that has come through on the Zee-Sony merger, where the NCLAT has set aside the NCLT order directing BSE and NSE to review the grant of the NOC. So it looks like in at least one more hurdle has been passed for the Zee-Sony merger to go through in its entirety. In any case, Puneet Goenka, who is the CEO of Zee, had mentioned several times that the team is taking all necessary steps within the boundaries of the law to ensure that there are no further hindrances in the merger approval. He's been quite confident that the merger will go through. But let's get Ashmit, my colleague, to talk more about this. Ashmit, some relief has come through from the NCLAT?
Well, indeed, this was a major concern that had emerged for Zee. The concern, of course, was the NCLT directing on 11th of May, directing for the NSE as well as the BSE to reconsider their NOC that they had granted for this merger going forward. Now, NSE and BSE, they were here before the NCLAT as well. They said that they were acting only as per SEBI directions. It is SEBI that had directed them to place the order, the SEBI order, on record against the NCLT. Now, just for the benefit of hindsight, the order is of April 25th by SEBI, where SEBI has raised concerns on the conduct of promoters of a sister company of Zee, and that is something that, in fact, prompted the NCLT to ask NSE and BSE to review their NOC. Now, what's important here is that the NCLT, while hearing this matter, heard and decided that there was no opportunity that was granted to Zee to respond to these concerns. There was no hearing given to Zee, and there was no response that was sought by Zee. It was a violation of principles of natural justice, and that for any decision of this sort, it should have been necessary for Zee to at least have been given a hearing. And on that ground alone, the NCLT order has been set aside. The issue, however, has been remanded back to the tribunal. The tribunal will hear this case once again, will decide once again whether or not, basis the SEBI order, if there is a need for the exchanges to review their NOC. That is an issue that falls back to the tribunal. The only difference this time is that there is a very explicit direction that Zee should be heard, Zee should be allowed to defend itself, should be allowed to defend the merger before any final order is passed. But that's for a later date. For now, the big tribunal order, which had directed for the exchanges to review their NOC, that order stands set aside.
Okay, and in this context of allowing Zee to be heard and to defend itself, right? I mean, as we were mentioning a while back as well, Ashmit, Puneet Goenka, the CEO of Zee, has several times in the past said that they are taking all necessary steps within the boundaries of the law to ensure that there are no further hindrances in the merger approval. But you did mention briefly that the tribunal will hear this case once again. For now, of course, the NCLT order has been set aside. In terms of a timeline, what are we looking at as to when this case can be heard? And what do you infer from this particular order being set aside? One more hurdle has now been removed in this merger going through?
Well, first, three questions there. I'll answer them one by one. First, as far as the timeline is concerned, that was one of the concerns that was raised by the lawyers, that this issue has been pending consideration for a while now, that they have secured all the statutory approvals, and therefore there should be at least a request made to the tribunal to decide this issue in a fast-paced manner. However, that request has not been acceded to. No such direction has been given to the NCLT. So the timeline, as far as that question is concerned, it continues to be an overhang. That is an issue that will now have to be responded to by the tribunal. In terms of securing the approval, well, this is again a clarification that was made by the counsels for Zee that all necessary approvals have been secured. All statutory approvals have been secured. No statutory body, the SEBI, CCI, the tax authorities, none of them are opposed to this entire transaction. So that is something that has also been very clearly placed on record. As far as what the substance of the hearing might be before the tribunal, an important clarification that the appellate tribunal, the NCLAT, has not said anything on the merits of the case. So this issue continues to be an issue that will have to be faced by Zee and Sony. But the difference this time around is twofold. The first difference is that they will be allowed a hearing. They will be allowed to defend themselves against any such further directions. The second takeaway, and perhaps more important as with respect to today's developments, is that the order which had in fact spooked the Zee-Sony merger, that order, at least for now, stands set aside. So for now, the temporary relief is that this is that NCLT order which had affected this merger stands set aside, but this is a question that will have to be considered and debated before the tribunal.
Okay, thanks a lot for that, Ashmit. Well, the order being set aside has come as a big relief to the stock. The stock is now up almost about 5% Remember, the merger of Zee and Sony, when it goes through in its entirety, will be one of the largest mergers in the Indian media entertainment sector. It's already received clearances from both the exchanges and the Competition Commission of India. However, it's still subject to necessary regulatory, shareholder as well as third-party approvals. And as we know that the proposed merger has already been grappling with a lot of legal complexities on opposition from several creditors, including Axis Finance, JC Flower Arc, amongst others. But now the NCLAT order has been set. The NCLAT has set aside the NCLT order, which means that another hurdle has been removed in the Zee-Sony merger going through in its entirety. Karan Taurani, who's been tracking this entire space very closely, joins in now. Karan, thanks for joining in. The NCLT has said that there was no opportunity granted to Zee to respond to the concerns, and this is a violation of principles of national justice. So definitely Zee will now be given a chance to not only be heard, be allowed to defend itself, and I'm sure the case will get stronger for this merger to go through. But how are you reading into it from a stock market angle? The stock is now up about 4.5%. Is the risk reward still favorable for an investor?
Hi, Sonia. So I think in terms of what has come right now from NCLT, it's like a very big relief for Zee. What could have happened in a worst-case scenario is that this entire case could have gone back to the exchanges, wherein they could have asked for a reconsideration of the approvals. And if that could have happened, this could have been a delay of anywhere close to 2 to 3 months in terms of getting the reapproval managed, right? So if the reapproval process is not happening with the exchanges and if things are going, as it is, I think the merger approval should come in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So from a stock standpoint, it is a very big relief because whatever correction we have seen in the stock of 15-20% over the last couple of months is primarily been because of the delay and the reconsideration of exchange in terms of giving the approval process. So that overhang goes away. Second overhang was also in terms of the quarterly earnings, right? I think if you look at the Q4 earnings, they've been quite tepid on the profitability standpoint. So even the results were declared yesterday, and even that overhang is very much priced in. So I think going ahead, the next hearing is on the 16th of June. And if we get any kind of positive response from there, and we probably get an idea in terms of the pace of the merger, I think the stock should see a good uptake from here on.
Okay, absolutely. If the merger is successful, it would undoubtedly benefit the investors, right? It would mean improved governance and also stronger content creation across Zee platforms, which would eventually result in better operational performance, which is what is lacking at the moment. Zee, as we know, has reported a big loss in the quarter gone by, almost 73 crores. But Jinesh Joshi, who's a research analyst at Prabhudas, Lilladher, also joins in now. Jinesh, your thoughts on the NCLT order being set aside? It is a big relief for the stock at the moment, but we're also dealing with a lot of operational losses that Zee is facing right now in its current business. So from a stock angle, how are you positioned?
So if you look at this quarter, obviously it was weak given issues surrounding the blackout which the company had faced. And also you had sports OPEX which hit the company with no corresponding revenue accretion. and hence the EBITDA margin was at about 7% odd. Going ahead, obviously, the recovery may not be as swift as expected given the weak ad environment. But I think the recovery should start coming in by second half, and we should see that 13-14% kind of an EBITDA margin by second half as the festive season sets in. And obviously, this relief is also a very good thing for the stock, so to say.
Okay, so just leave us with some, target prices on Zee. First, let me start with you, Karan, at about 190 rupees. This overhang is now out of the way. At least one hurdle has been, removed. But perhaps the stock is already pricing that in, right? I mean, it's up 5%. From here on, what kind of an upside do you see, Karan?
So from here on, I think first thing is that we have to track the timelines of the merger approval. How much time does that take? I think once the NCLT approval just comes in, you could see another 10-15% spike in the first phase. And the second phase of the spike, which is the potential upside of 30-40% beyond that, I think that will be, basis the kind of strategy we have and the synergies for the business. So our current target price is 300 rupees, which is an SOTP basis target price. And it also factors in that 11,000 crores cash infusion which Sony is going to bring. And we have also, done a PAT estimate of about 2,500 crores for the merged entity, which also includes synergy of almost about 500 crores. And we're giving the core TV broadcasting, which is a multiple of 17 times, because they're going to become very large in terms of size. And potentially, if the execution is correct and if they do things well on the content side, they could even surpass Star Disney in terms of viewership share.
Okay, well, the Zee Group is very confident that this, deal may go through, this merger may go through in its entirety. Zee has told the NCLAT that $1.5 billion of FDI will come through as a result of the Zee-Sony merger. They have secured all statutory approvals and 99.8% shareholders have approved the scheme. Also, they say that no statutory authority is objecting to the scheme. Private objections may have been raised, but they are addressing all of these claims. And all they wanted was to be given an opportunity to be heard by the NSE and the BSE, which at the moment was not the case. So hopefully they will get an opportunity to be heard and defend themselves with regards to all the opposition. But for now, the street is definitely factoring in this deal going through in its entirety. One more hurdle is now out of the way. With that, it is a wrap on Halftime Report. Thanks a lot for watching. Business Lunch will take the action ahead.